Hey there, survivors. Thanks for tuning into this story. If you're new here, consider subscribing. It really helps keep these stories coming. And before we start, a big thank you to those supporting the channel with an extra membership, especially the Scouts. I see you, I appreciate you, and I create this for you. Now, let's get started. The building is closed to the public, and I am the one who locks the last door. Maintenance signs hang on stanchions in the lobby, plastic wrap covers a few railings, and the air smells like salt and disinfectant. I have my duty phone on a lanyard, a ring of keys that clinks too loud in empty halls, and a checklist that used to belong to 2 people. I am staff diver and caretaker, and because of cuts, I am also the night watch. I pull the gate on the gift shop, tap the panel that drops the shades along the big window, and say goodnight out loud to no one. I do it to keep a steady rhythm in my head. Ocean Voyager sits quiet on the other side of the service door. The big window is dark. The tunnel lights are off. I step onto the catwalk up top and let my eyes adjust to the blue work lights. A whale shark passes under the surface, the shape big and calm. A manta turns a slow circle like it always does when it senses movement above. I do not wave. I do the rounds. 2 returns running instead of 3 to save power during these hours. Oxygen cone steady. Flow where it should be. I write down numbers on the clipboard because that is how you hold a routine together. Cold Water Quest is a degree colder than yesterday because we serviced a chiller and brought it back online. The belugas roll and exhale. I stand back from the rail and watch for a count of 30, enough to see if the pattern matches the last count. It does. I log it. I move on. Tropical Diver hums on a lighter cycle. We cut the reef lights to protect the batteries upstairs. The wave machine is on a short duty pattern. Corals hate surprises. I keep the changes small, and I keep the times the same. I feed a few pellets to the fish that get anxious if they miss a window. No show feeding, just enough to keep behavior even. River Scout is easy at night. Freshwater species glide along low. I check dissolved oxygen and move. The place is a maze of steel stairs, sealed concrete floors, and back rooms that all look like the last room if you are not careful. I left chalk arrows knee-high along my path last week for blackout conditions. A small thing. It helps. The rooftop battery room smells faintly like warm plastic. The meters show a full charge from a clear day. Solar will top us again tomorrow if the weather holds. The microgrid controller shows what we already planned. The building can run life support, emergency lighting, chillers on a cycle, and security. Guest lights and show pumps stay off. I mark the time for the next backwash while the sun will be high. Not at night when the batteries carry the load alone. The first week is quiet inside and loud outside. News says rallies, then marches, then fights. The aquarium chose this window for scheduled maintenance because spring is slow. That looked smart on paper. I get a text from the operations manager asking me to extend until it calms down. He says the contractors want a clean site to finish the work. I tell him I will stay. He adds a temporary role to my badge. More doors open for me now. More rooms are my problem. Inside, the animals settle into the pattern. Rays rise for hand target at the same time every night whether guests are here or not. Dolphins rest near the surface and roll, like they always do when staff voices echo through the dark. Penguins complain in short bursts if I am late. Otters wait for a rattle at the keeper door. I give them small enrichment that does not pull power. A frozen fish block from the smaller freezer makes them work just enough. On the 7th night, the city grid goes down. It is not a blink. It is a deep fall. The district drops in a wave that moves across the skyline. Our system senses it and picks up the load without a hiccup. The hallway exit signs glow. The LSS control screens stay on. The tunnel lights stay off. Just the blue glow we keep for orientation. Battery state of charge shows high, but I feel the shift in the building. The sound is different at night on backup. You hear individual pumps, not a wash of everything at once. I do a full round as if it is the first night again. I mark down which loads we can shed if clouds stack over the city. The plan is simple. 2 returns on Ocean Voyager, not 3. The oxygen cone is non-negotiable. Belugas keep chillers on a tight duty cycle with black tarps on part of the surface to slow heat gain. Dolphins keep oxygen and steady flow. Reef lights stay short. Jelly chrysalis stay on the edge of enough. River scout flows gentle. Quarantine tanks consolidate. I write it all in fat marker on a whiteboard in the LSS room. If my head gets scrambled, I can point to a board and follow steps. The first night of the outage, 2 figures test the glass out front. The cameras catch them. They move slow, with the odd sway you learn after 2 weeks of watching footage. I mute the audio. You do not need audio to understand behavior. One palms the window and leaves a streak. I call building security on the radio out of habit. Then remember I am building security. I stay quiet. The exterior door locks held. The shades are down. No reason to engage. On the 9th night, something changes. A metal thud rolls up through the tunnel frame. It is not a hit on the glass. It is the frame taking a strike from below. The sound transfers through steel. It always does. It travels into the back hallway and across to the LSS room like a hammer on a pipe. Ocean Voyager animals shift course and give the tunnel a wider arc. I watch cameras for 5 minutes. A man in a dirty jacket is below, hands on the frame, forehead against the pane. He is not here for me. He is here for the only lit thing in a dead block. I do not switch the light off. The manta uses that light at night. I will not yank it away. I need another plan. I change routes. I quit walking the long straight hall between the dock and the LSS room. I make a 2-turn path through a plant room and a storage hallway with a low ceiling. I stash a water bottle and a second headlamp behind a half-latched door so I never get stuck with dark hands. I put a pair of cable ties through the holes in a roll-down grill and clip them to a ring I can yank in one motion. If something moves toward me, I drop the grill and lock the track with a click. No heroics, just hardware used the way it wants to be used. I am in the generator room when the first real fault rolls in. A wet floor sensor trips on SCADA near the return line bank for Ocean Voyager. The differential pressure nudges high. Cameras show no flood yet, but I know those sensors. Old ones fail high. Young ones fail in bursts. I grab boots, gloves, a rag, and a headlamp, and I go look. The room sings with pump tone. A string of water is misting off a gasket and hitting a drain. It is small. It is exactly the kind of small problem that becomes a big problem if I ignore it. The drain feeds a low corridor that runs toward a staff stairwell. I tag the nearest butterfly valve with orange tape and give it 2 slow turns to ease the pressure without starving the loop. Flow steadies. I log the turn count on paper and tape a note next to the wheel. A manta rises, as if it heard me reduce the noise in the pipe. I know that is not how it works. I say it anyway because it keeps me steady. I stage a bin there now. Spare gaskets, wrench, towels, a roll of tape. I also stage dive gear in the nearby room. Cylinder filled. Buoyancy vest checked. Regulator hung. Fins by the door. Primary light and 2 backups bagged with desiccant. Guideline reel tied off to the door hinge with a small carabiner. A throw bag sits by the panel door with a length of rope tied to the handle. I write a note on a tag. If I go in, rule of thirds for the gas. 2 backups for light. Keep a hand on the wall and the line on the way out. No deep pushes. No hero arc. On the same night, the loading dock door frame warps on camera. Not a lot. Just enough to change the way it makes contact with the seal. There is a sound in the hall 2 minutes later. Bare feet on sealed concrete sound different than shoes. You can tell by the squeak on the turn. I drop to one knee behind a bin and listen with my head tilted toward the floor like a dog. I hear 1 set of steps, then 2. I press the towel over my mouth and nose and breathe through it to keep noise down. I feel foolish doing it until the steps pause outside my room. The handle twitches once, then stops. The steps move on. I do not chase. I give it a count of 60. Then I back out into the plant room route and leave the long haul to the dead. Ocean Voyager is stable. The leak is quiet. The infected outside hit the tunnel frame every few hours, then drift off. I can live with that pattern. I cannot live with a flood. 2 days later, the sensor trips again, and the camera shows a wet shine in the corridor elbow, knee-deep and climbing. The manual isolation valve sits beyond that elbow. I put on the dive kit. Short job, shallow, overhead. I clip the reel to the hinge, do a 2-breath check on the regulator, and step into the water. The water carries salt and a metal edge. Dust floats like snow in the beam, not peaceful, just there. I keep the wall on my right, the line on my left thumb. The elbow appears as a darker patch and then becomes a ladder cage. I ignore a shape near the grate that might be a mop head or a ruined jacket. The valve wheel is a foot past the turn. I plant my feet against the wall and turn. The wheel pushes back with the kind of stubborn that warns you not to go fast. I turn in quarters. The hiss lowers from a spray to a thread. I stop, listen to pump tone through the pipe, and turn again. The tone evens out. I back out on the line and keep the beam low so I do not blind myself on steel. I surface and shut the door. I mark the wheel with the new position. I write the time. Wet hands smudge the ink, so I write it again. I come up to the catwalk to check behavior. A whale shark glides by. A ray rises and turns on the same line it uses every night. I toss a small portion. It takes it. I put the bucket down and stand with my palms on the rail, not touching the water, not making any show moves. The tunnel below is dark. A face presses on the glass, then slides off. The sound hits the frame and sends a dull roll back up through the steel grating under my boots. Dolphins across the building answer with a quick burst. I keep my lights low and move off the catwalk. The next afternoon the sky turns white and stays that way. The solar intake drops. The batteries will handle the night, but the margin shrinks. I schedule backwash for midday and cancel every non-essential power draw. I pull a block of capelin from a larger freezer and move it to the smaller one tied to the best inverter. I stack dry goods by date. I get a text from the operations manager that does not send. The bars grey out. I do not see another message from him. I stop expecting one. The rattle trap fires at the dock just after midnight. Bins clatter. I drop my headlamp, let my eyes sit in the dark, and kneel by the curve in the hall. First infected stumbles through the half-latched door and hits the shin-high pallet stack. He falls hard and slides. I slide the pallet jack under his chest, lever the handle to pin his arms for a second, loop a ratchet strap over his wrists, and cinch until the hands stop flailing. Ankles get a tie. I do not speak. I do not strike. Second infected fumbles across the threshold. I flick a small laser dot once at the far wall. He follows it like a cat and bumps into the dead-end gate. I drop the roll-down grill and pop the ties through the track holes. The third one comes half a minute later and piles into the second. I pull back into the plant room door, close it, and shoot the bolt. I breathe into the towel and wait for the scrape of hands to move away. I do not leave them to roam. I do not open doors to clear them. I keep them penned and log it. If I open that line again in the next week, I will do it with a shield and a plan. For now, the building has a new geography. This hall is closed to me. I move through my 2-turn maze and work around the problem like a river around a rock. At midnight, I call out on a handheld radio. I do it at the top of each hour and only for 3 minutes. I do not say my name. I do not give the building. I say, strong building with water and power. Safe route possible at night. 1 person at a time. Reply on the half-minute. On the third night, a voice answers. Woman. Thin signal. She says she is 2 blocks east, in a hotel with no power. She says she can see a faint blue square at night. I tell her it is real. I tell her to wait. We will try at 00:15 tomorrow if it is quiet. I tell her to bring no bright lights, no loud shoes, and no bags she cannot drop. She says her name is Lena. I tell her mine is Mark. I do not promise rescue. I promise a plan. Before that run, the sensor trips again and locks out a second return. SCADA will not bypass because the interlock is local. I am back in a wetsuit with tape under my cuff and a throw bag rope on the door handle. The water in the elbow is shoulder deep now and has a sour note to it. I move in until my light picks a panel. I find the wet floor sensor. I press a dry strip of tape across the leads and hold it while I feel the floor with my boot. Dry beyond the elbow. I throw the breaker, hit the restart, and feel the tone climb in the walls as the pump spins and catches. Something bumps my calf and rolls away. I do not kick. I pull the line and back out slow. Door pulls shut on the rope and seats. I dog it. Then I set my back against it for a 10 count and listen. Quiet. I go write the restart time on the board. I meet Lena at the dock after midnight. Light rain makes the alley shine. I open the door 6 inches and pass an N95 mask, a small flashlight, and a bottle of water. I whisper the rules. Hug the left wall. Step where I step. Stop on a squeeze to your forearm. No talking. Unless we stop, and I ask a question. She nods. Her eyes track the light, not my face. She has been in the dark for days, and her focus is off. We move. 2 infected drift into the primary route at the L turn. They are quiet until they feel warmer air near the plant room. I pulse a strobe. I set down the decoy corridor and toss a wrench toward it. The clank pulls both heads. We step past on rubber soles. One slips on fish oil residue I spread as a deterrent and slides into a shallow sump pit I left open. I flip the grate back over the pit as he thrashes and cable tie 2 corners so it will not pop back up. We clear the L and make the plant room with no contact. I close the door and put a wedge under it. I look at Lena for the first time. She is early 40s, hair damp, lips cracked. She is steady, no shaking, just a tight focus on the next step. I hand her a second water and we keep it moving. In the control room, I give her a chair, a blanket, and a short talk. No long stories, just the rules of this place. No loud talk in the back halls. No lights in the tunnel zone. Keep the blue light over Ocean Voyager on a timer. Do not open a door unless you know what is on the other side. Do not touch the oxygen cone valve. Do not cough into open air near the food prep area. She nods through each item and repeats them back. I give her a job that buys me time. She sits at the beluga camera and counts breaths at the surface for 10 minutes and writes the number. It is not busy work. It tells me stress. It also gives her a place in the room. With Lena here, I can risk one thing I could not do alone. A quick fuel transfer from the bulk tank to the day tank without missing a beat in the rooms. I do not need it tonight. I want it in place. The bulk tank sits behind a door I can wedge at a crack. The siphon line is pre-run with a foot valve. The hand pump takes a minute to prime. If I hear feet, I drop the handle, close the valve, and step into the plant room and let the line go slack to hide in shadow. I try it at 2 in the morning, while Lena does a dolphin station check on camera. I get a small pull going, a few gallons into the day tank. Then the hole pops with that barefoot squeak again. I close the valve, tuck the handle in my vest, and back into the plant room, while the line drapes like a dead snake against the wall. 2 infected pass the crack in the door and keep moving toward the bin rattle. I stay still until the sound fades. Then I come back out and coil the line. The building gets what it gets today. I will try again after rain if I have to. With 2 sets of hands, the place gets a little safer. I show Lena the chalk arrows at knee level and the backup arrows 3 feet above. If smoke ever hangs low, she can follow the higher set. I walk her through a dry run from the LSS room to the catwalk and back in the dark. She moves quiet. She does not try to chat. Good. We do not need that. We need timing. We time our moves with the drum filter wash so our steps sit inside that rush. We time catwalk moves with the oxygen cone hiss so a boot scuff gets lost. Little tricks. They make the difference between getting heard and not. Then we get a new kind of problem. The catwalk access door does not latch hard after a backwash. 2 infected find the stairwell. Camera shows them climbing with slow, awkward hands. I do not want them on the catwalk. 1 slip and I have a person in the big tank. I do not want that on any level. I run the route with a pool hook over my shoulder and a net curtain rolled up above a narrow span. I wait at the far end until both step onto the plank. Then I pull the release. The net drops and tangles one at the knees and wrists. I shove with the hook until the bundle sits between the gate and a locked service door. I drop the guillotine-style gate with a quick pull. The second keeps coming. I hold the hook out and keep backing until I clear the second gate and drop it. Both are penned in separate cells. I tape a note to the rail so I do not forget tomorrow morning. Avoid this span. We reroute catwalk access until I sort it. We withdraw and feed a small portion to the manta that always turns under the work light. It rises, takes the piece, and sinks. I mark the feed and look at the beluga camera. The count looks normal. Lena hands me the notebook without a word. We sit on tool chests for a minute and drink water. It tastes like plastic. I do not care. I look at her hands. They are steady. She has a small cut on her knuckle. I clean it with saline and tape a strip over it. We do not talk about the city. The city is outside the walls. My job is in here. Days blend. We run the building on a lifeboat plan. 1 return pump on at night, 2 during solar peak. Oxygen cones steady. Beluga chiller on a tight timer. Reef lights on the shortest cycle that keeps the corals from bleaching. Jelly flow low enough that they do not strand. River Scout humming. Otters are bored, so I hand them a hard frozen block early in the day when solar can handle the draw from the small freezer. They crack it apart and make a mess. It is worth it to keep their behavior smooth. We do get a bad night. A thunderstorm rolls over late and kills the charge curve. The batteries start the night at a lower state. A sensor trips again in the wet corridor because the seal that leaked last week got hammered by the pump cycling. I know that tone now. It is the pitch of a loop under strain. I gear up. Lena sits on the radio with her eyes on SCADA. We practice a call and response. I say, "In." She says, "Line tight." I say, "At the elbow." She says, "Pressure steady." It keeps the work clean. I step into water that is higher than last time, shoulder deep and pushing. I sweep the light and see fine grit in the beam. Something floats near the elbow that is not a mop head. I keep the wall on my right and my line in my left thumb. The panel door shows in my light. I pull the throwbag rope and let the door swing toward me. Something slides across my shin and knocks against my fin. I hold still a beat so I do not kick anything into a panic. I reach the wheel and give it a quarter turn. The hiss eases. I hold the line tight. I turn again. That does it. The spray drops to a thread. I feel the pump tone climb and then settle through the metal. I back out slow. I pull the rope and the door comes home against the frame. I dog it, then step back and listen. The infected in the corridor behind it slaps a hand on the door and drags it down the panel. The sound goes through the steel and into my forearms. I do not engage. There is nothing to gain by opening this box. I back off, peel the wetsuit to my waist, and go check SCADA. Stable. With the loop safe, we take a risk and do a second midnight run. Lena wants to bring a friend who hid in a stairwell in the parking structure. I do not like it. 2 is harder than 1. I agree if we can set a time, a route, and a dead drop if things go bad. She gets him on her radio for a minute and repeats the rules. He is quiet. He says his name is Chris. He can move without a limp. He can drop a bag. That is enough for me to try. We leave the dock door at a crack again and listen. The alley is empty. I send Lena to the corner to signal with a small mirror. I keep my headlamp off and my hand on the hinge. 3 minutes pass. A shape detaches from a darker shape and hustles for the door. Chris slides sideways through the crack like a person who lived in cities long enough to learn the skill. He is taller than me and too thin. I hand him a mask and whisper the rules again. He nods once and we go. At the L turn, the sump pit trick is already blown. Someone pulled the grate and left it sideways. I push Chris against the left wall with a hand on his chest and pulse the strobe down the decoy again. The infected in the hall goes for the light and trips straight into the open pit. The sound is sharp and short. I drop the grate again, while he thrashes and cinch the cable ties with my teeth. We move. The plant room door sticks on the last inch. I press my shoulder into it and wiggle. It gives. We slide in. I put a wedge under it. Chris exhales a word that is not polite, then shuts his mouth. Good. He can be loud later if he lives here. With 3 people, the place changes again. I assign watch windows. I take the deep night in the LSS room and the rounds. Lena takes the early morning and the penguins. Chris takes midday and all the heavy lifting jobs while Solar is strong. He has hands like someone who worked in a shop. He tapes wires well. He does not ask to touch the oxygen cone valves. He follows notes on the whiteboard without trying to be clever. He earns a pillow in the staff restroom because he snores quiet. The cost of a bigger group is the food load. That pushes us into the cafe. We keep the visits short and quiet. We move snack bars and crackers to a hidden bin under a back counter and lock the cooler. I tell both of them a rule. If we run out of power, the animals eat first, then us. No hero talk. That is not about noble sacrifice. That is about keeping the air and water clean. Rotting meat in the wrong place wrecks the building. The rule stands. They nod and do not argue. On the 15th night, the faces at the tunnel number more. Not a crowd, just a slow line of the lost. Some have dried blood on their shirts. Some have mud. A few move fast in bursts and check doors like raccoons. I do not love that pattern. The frame takes more strikes. The manta swings wider again. I decide to push the infected away from the frame without opening a public door. I set a small strobe in a side hall that leads nowhere and tape a hand warmer to it, so it gives a tiny heat signature. It will not look like food. It will look like a thing that holds heat and light. That is enough. I pulse it every half hour. The frame gets a break. The strike rate drops. The manta moves back toward her usual line. I write a line to myself on the board. Keep the frame quiet. The animals are not here for human noise. We run into our first true injury on the 18th night. I drop the roll-down grill fast and the handle kicks back. My wrist bends wrong. It is not a break. It hurts. I tape it with a wrap from the first aid kit and shove the pallet jack work onto Chris for a couple of days. I still do the dive work because that is muscle memory and I can keep the bad hand off the line. Lena offers, and I shake my head. She is new to the gear, and the corridor is tight. We would lose time we do not have if she got tangled. She does not fight me on it. She just sits at the radio and runs the call and response in a voice that does not waver. We get through the restart and the isolation without a mess. I watch for heat stress in the belugas as summer pushes in. We keep the tarps on a little longer in the afternoon and do short checks twice at night to watch the cycle. The count at the surface looks normal. The dolphins keep calm. The reef holds color. The jelly chryzals catch two that strand on the ring, and I scoop them back into flow with a soft net. The otters chew through the block in a mood that says they still have a little joy in the world. I take that as a win. The city outside is not my story, but it keeps trying to push in. A small group of men with a cart appears on the loading dock camera in the afternoon. They test the door with a pry bar. The bar flexes. The door holds. One man cups his hands to the glass and speaks. I cannot hear it. I can read posture. He wants in. I do not open. I do not flash lights. I do not wave. He pounds once, then twice. The sound carries into the back hall. Dolphins answer. I key the radio and say, "Move from the dock." No one listens because the radio is not theirs. After 5 minutes, they leave. We wait 15 more before we move through that hall. In the third week, the batteries go into a deep cycle after 3 days of clouds and bad sun angles. The microgrid shrugs, but my nerves do not. I trim again. Reef lights drop a little more. Jelly flow stays just above the threshold. Beluga chiller gets a tighter range with tarps. I cut one return at night. I set a hard alarm for dissolved oxygen. I set a softer one for ornamental numbers so I do not get spooked by every wiggle. I push backwash to the brightest hour. I write on the board in big letters, "Do not touch oxygen cone valves." Then I underline it. I do not trust myself if I am tired. A note on the wall saves me from my own bad ideas. Then comes the night when the infected in the corridor learn a new trick by accident. One hits the plant room door in the exact spot the latch misses by a hair. The door shakes and opens half an inch. I had a wedge under it, but the wedge slipped because oil from the fish pit spread when I pulled the grate 2 nights ago. I am 30 feet away. I set the strobe down the decoy hall and throw a wrench toward it. The infected turns. I slide to the door and kick the wedge back into place with the flat of my boot. The door seats. I push a second wedge in. I tape the top of the door to the frame with a strip that will rip but will make noise if the door moves. I mark a skull on the jam at ankle height so no one touches it at speed tomorrow. I tell Chris to cut a new wedge from scrap wood. He brings me 2, and we put one under the hinge side for good measure. We try the radio at midnight again to raise anyone else. I do not want a crowd. I want one more set of hands that can learn and follow. A voice answers that is only static and fear. I cannot pick out words. I do not promise anything. I just say, if you can reach the parking structure stairwell door on the west face, wait there at midnight and listen. If you hear 3 knocks, follow the chalk arrows low. If you hear 4, do not move. I do not know if he hears me. I do not go that night. The corridor is too hot. I do not trade an animal's life or mine for a plan I cannot control. That is the line. The next morning, Lena asks me if we are going to stay until the batteries die, or if we are going to leave when the food drops below a line. I pour coffee that tastes like cardboard, and say we will keep the loop breathing as long as there is power and a path. If the power drops below a safe line, we will set the valves to a passive state, leave a laminated card on the rack with instructions, and go. It is an ugly answer. It is the only honest one. She nods. Chris shrugs. No one debates. We go back to work. I write the emergency card. I laminate it. I tape it to the SCADA rack. It lists the valve states, the duty cycles, the restart sequence for the stubborn pump, and a big note that says, "Do not feed without power to filtration." I do not want a stranger trying to be kind and turning the big tank into a problem. I put a copy in a dry bag by the service intake with a small cylinder, a regulator, a headlamp, socks, and a sealed pack of protein bars. If I go out through the water, I want a kit to greet me on the other side. We hold this pattern. We do not get soft. We do not relax. I keep a checklist on my chest with a pencil so I can mark down when my head gets foggy. I eat at the same times. I drink more water than I want. I sleep in short blocks in the staff restroom with the radio turned low and the door blocked by a tool chest. The music I used to put on for the reef work is gone. I do not want music. I want pump tone. I want backwash hiss. These are the sounds that mean life in this box of water. Rain comes in thin sheets at dusk and pushes the stink from the streets into the loading dock alley. I watch camera feeds and see a line of shapes in the grey light. Not a couple. A line that keeps growing. One man hits the twisted frame with his shoulder and slides off. Another tests the gap with fingers and does not pull them back when the steel bites. The sound moves through the building like someone dragging a pipe along the spine. The blue work light over the big window pulls eyes from half a block away. The tunnel frame takes strikes every few seconds. That is new. I call it what it is. A draw. We have a crowd building. I call Lena and Chris to the LSS room. I lay it out fast. The door is not failing yet, but the frame is bending more every night. The bin rattle trap will not matter if enough bodies push at once. We need to thin the head count near the dock, and we need to do it without gunfire or loud hits. I point to the map and tap the plant room, the roll-down grill, the sump pit, and the flooded run. I say we will push infected into water and choke points, and we will keep our hands off the acrylic and the exhibit rails. That is the rule. They nod, no speeches. We move. We set up the first layer at the dock. Chris drags 2 pallet stacks into a funnel that narrows right before the half-latched door. I take a roll of pallet wrap and run it at shin height between the stacks in a zigzag. It looks like trash. It behaves like a snare. The first foot catches. The second foot tries to step free and tangles. I tape a strobe to the far wall of the short dead-end hall inside and cover it with a towel. I leave a hand warmer taped to it for a hint of heat. I dust fish oil along the floor by the sump pit so it turns slick for the second wave. This is crude. It is enough. Next layer is the plant room line. I tie the roll-down grill trip to a cable so I can drop it from behind the corner. I leave a CO2 extinguisher on a dolly with the pin pulled and the horn ready to sweep low. Lena sets a bucket of thawed fish scraps in the decoy corridor to draw noses and bodies away from the clean hall. She does not like wasting feed. I tell her straight, we pay for it now, or we pay for it in broken doors. She clicks the bucket into place and walks off the smell with her face set. Final layer is the flooded run. I put on the wetsuit to my waist and stage my kit in case I need to close a valve quickly. I run a guideline from the hinge again and tie a second line to the panel door. I leave the throw bag rope coiled and ready. If the horde moves into the water, that corridor turns into a slow ditch. I do not want to be inside with a crowd at my back. I set my line so I can operate from the dry side if I must shove something deeper with the door leaf. The dock camera shows the push start for real as darkness takes the alley. A man with a broken shoulder makes a mistake and goes sideways into the gap. 2 more bodies find the same seam. The whole mass sways. The frame shudders and a bolt squeals. I key the radio and tell Chris to get ready at the pull line. I take a towel, cover my mouth, and put my back to the plant room corner. The door gives with a bark of rubber. We do not cheer. We start. First infected tumbles through and hits the pallet wrap with both shins. He folds and takes out a second behind him. Third trips over both and rides the pile forward. Chris gives 2 short pulls on the line, and the roll-down grill slams down behind the third body. The dead-end haul is now a pen. I sweep the CO2 stream low across the floor. The white cloud hits eyes and mouths and turns that pen into a slow brawl. Hands grasp at air. None of them see us. We keep our steps tight along the wall and our backs to the hinge. The 4th and 5th hit the fish oil strip. 1 skids, 1 windmills. Both drop into the sump pit and wedge at the waist. The grate pops up and teeters. I slam it back down and throw 2 cable ties through the corners and pull until my palms sting. To the left, the pallet jack pin is ready. I shove the handle down and lock the head against the floor so the frame acts like a chest bar if more come. It is ugly. It works. I count the rhythm. 6 bodies through in under a minute. More jam in the door. The funnel holds. The wrap keeps doing the same job over and over. It puts legs where we want them. I let the CO2 die so we do not ice the floor. We yank the door to the plant room open and step inside. I pull the cable and drop the grill behind us. Hands slap steel and slide. I key the radio and say, "First pen full, load is shifting." Now the sound spreads through the building. Dolphins call once, then settle as water tone stays stable. The tunnel frame goes quiet because the mass moved to the dock. That helps the manta. That helps the sharks. I hold that thought for 1 second and put it away. We have work. The second push comes fast and hard. Someone outside drags a metal cart and jams it into the gap. The cart frame wedges and turns the door into a flexing jaw. 6 bodies pour over it in a lurch. The funnel catches the first 2 and fails on the 3rd and 4th as the wrap tears. 5th hits the wall and slides. 6th sees light in the decoy corridor and goes for it. I pulse the strobe. The beam throws hard shadows and pulls a cluster east. Good. That buys us seconds. I use the pool hook like a bar to keep an arm's length. I am not swinging for damage. I am steering faces away from my stomach and hands. Chris pushes the pallet jack handle into a thigh and pins a knee against the concrete. He straps an ankle to the jack head and steps back as 3 more bodies jam behind it. He yells something short and clean. I do not need the words. I see what he needs. I keep the space open so he can cinch the strap and get his fingers out. 1 fast infected comes in hot. The gait is wrong. Knee jerks forward. Foot hits toe first. Hands out like a climber who lost a hold. It goes for Lena, who is lighter and smaller than me. I slide into its path and jam the pool hook across the collarbones and push up. The hook is aluminum and flexes, but the leverage is right. The jaw snaps and the face turns toward the beam on my head. I kill the light and point a small laser dot at the decoy hole. The fast one angles that way and smashes into the closed fire door. It bounces and comes back at the nearest shape, which is me again. I step into it and use the pry bar across the shins. The body folds and drops sideways into the sump edge. I shove with my hips until it goes in. I drop the grate and sit on it for 1 breath as it bucks. The ties hold. I get off the grate and hook the loop with a spare tie so the corner cannot pop. The dock jam becomes a steady pour. We cannot hold the funnel forever. The frame screams again, and the door leaf bends in a way I do not like. I key the radio and say, "Fall back, second pen not safe." We move to the plant room corridor and run the 2-turn path. I grab the CO2 dolly and pull it behind me. Lena carries the strobe and 2 straps. Chris takes the pallet jack and runs it backward on 2 wheels like a furniture mover. He has the balance for it. The wheels squeal once and then ride smooth. We reach the corridor before the flooded run. I hear water slapping the panel door, not from the leak, from bodies. They found the cool air and the sound, and they pushed in. The door leaf bows as a chest hits it. A hand slaps the round window and slides off. I look at the line I tied earlier and feel relief that I can do this next part without going in. I pull the throw bag rope. The panel door swings inward and shoves a block of bodies off the step into deeper water. The first two go under and come up choking. The third is stuck at the waist on a grab bar. The fourth steps on the third and slides. The water rises 2 inches and the shoulder-deep section becomes chin-high. That is what we needed. The corridor is a ditch now. Movement slows. Hands reach and miss. Mouths open and take on water. The door leaf hits a stop. I hold the rope as a brace and keep pressure on it so nothing can wedge it back. Lena drops the strobe under the handrail and clicks it twice so it bounces light along the water. It pulls faces down the wrong way and packs the far elbow with bodies that cannot keep their feet. Chris plants the pallet jack like a barrier at the dry threshold and runs the strap through the frame to make a low bar. That gives us a gate we can drop and lift with a flick. He knows what he is doing. I watch his hands and copy his strap path so I can reset it fast if I have to. The next 10 minutes are a grind. Bodies pour into water and stack until the ditch becomes a slow machine that eats feet and balance. I keep the pool hook low and use it to push arms away from the strap. I avoid the door window because a face finds any hint of movement and slaps it. The sound carries through steel and into my teeth. I do not fix that. I live with it. We hold this line until the push softens. The sound at the dock changes from hard knocks to isolated taps. That means the first wave used up its force. I send Chris to reset the funnel with fresh wrap while I watch the ditch. Lena moves to the control room and checks the boards. She calls back numbers in a steady voice. Flow is steady. Oxygen looks good. Beluga chiller is midway through a cycle. Reef lights are on the short program. No alarms. That means we can think about the next step instead of running behind a failure. We do not want the ditch full by morning. We need a clear corridor to reach the valve bank if something pops. We plan a clean-out without noise. I tie a length of paracord to a valve handle along the wall, inside the corridor that feeds a drain-down line. It is not perfect. It pulls some water into a sump that runs to another plant room. It also lowers the level at the elbow by a few inches. That is enough to let bodies settle on steps and slide. I pull the rope in pulses so the motion does not create a draw that sucks in more from the dock side. The level drops. The mass shifts. Hands slip off the door and fall quiet. That is our window. We take the long way back to the dock hallway and find a mess that looks like a warehouse fell over. Pallet wrap hangs like seaweed between stacks. The cart that made the lever is jammed sideways. Chris puts the pry bar into the frame and gives short steps until the angle eases. The door leaf sits closer to true now. The gap is still there. We need a better seal. We do not have a new door. We have straps and bins. We strap a stack tight against the seam and wedge the base with a floor jack we found in maintenance. It is not pretty. It gives the frame back some strength. I run a bead of duct tape along the seam to quiet little whistles. It will not hold a push. It will tell me where the air is moving if I check with a hand. I call a pause. We drink water. We wipe hands. We eat 2 small packs of crackers between the 3 of us. No one says much. I can see the shake in my fingers. I put the pencil in my hand and write numbers on the board until the lines get straight. That trick still works. Lena pats my shoulder once. That is all. We go back on rounds. The tunnel frame is quiet again by the time I get up top. I toss a small portion and the manta takes it with a smooth turn. A whale shark drifts past and does not crowd the glass. I accept that as the only thanks I will get tonight. I move to the beluga camera. The count looks normal. I write it down. I keep the radio on my leg and the headlamp low. I hear the alley again before I see it. The pitch is lower now. Fewer voices. More shuffles. The first wave spent itself against doors, straps, water and time. We are not done. Distant sirens pop once and then end. Far away, something big collapses. That noise does not change what I do in the next hour. I still have to keep this building moving water. Near dawn, a second crowd forms, pulled by the same draw. The blue square of the big window is a beacon to any mind that can still notice pattern. This group comes with a new problem. A truck rolled and hangs across the alley, nose wedged in a fence, rear frame up. It acts like a ramp and a podium. Bodies climb it with help from bodies under them. The height gives hands a better line on the top of the door frame. I watch one set of fingers hook the bolt head and worry at it. I do not like that at all. We answer with height too. I send Chris to the mezzanine above the dock with a stack of plastic storage tubs and a crate of flat slat shelving. He builds a low wall across the catwalk that looks like nothing. The slats are bait. They will fall loud if someone grabs them. He ties a line from the far post to a release pin on the net curtain we used on the catwalk earlier. If a rush reaches the stairwell, he can drop a web of mesh down the stairs. Not to trap forever, to tangle feet and buy 10 seconds. 10 seconds in this building is the difference between a clean retreat and a bad decision. At the floor, I add a new layer to the funnel. I roll out a length of anti-fatigue mat and flip it over so the grid faces up. I lay short rods of conduit under it and dust the top with a thin smear of fish oil. It looks like black floor. It moves like a treadmill. First infected onto it will keep stepping and never get proper traction. That will pull the next one down. It is cheap and it can be reset. The second wave hits just after first light. A woman with a torn sleeve rides a push of bodies into the door like a battering ram. The frame gives a little and then stops because of the floor jack bite. The grid mat does the job. She steps, slides, and winds up on knees with her hands on the pallet wrap. I do not get close. I use the pull hook through the mesh of the wrap to push her back into the mass. Others take her place and the pattern repeats. The treadmill feeds the pen grows, the ditch waits. We steer the stream like a keeper with a hose. A runner gets through at speed. He comes in high, shoulder up, head tilted, mouth open, but not making sound. He clears the mat with a lucky leap and lands on the dry strip near the plant room door. I am in front of him with nothing in my hands because I was adjusting a strap. He reaches for my shirt. I jam my forearm into his throat, grab his elbow, and pivot my hips until the joint is locked. He fights hard. I do not wrestle. I walk him 2 steps and drop him into the wedge between the pallet stack and the wall, and jam the pallet jack head into his ribs. Chris sees the move and slams the handle down to lock the head. I wrap the strap around a forearm and pull until it bites the steel. The runner thrashes and then burns out fast. The body goes slack. It still snaps the jaw at nothing. We leave it in the pinch until we clear the hall. The push at the door slows. The mezzanine traps stay unused because the stairwell never gets a full column. The ditch gurgles like a sump with a slow feed. We stand in a row with backs to the wall and heads down and just breathe for a count. I do not say we won a fight. I say we are not losing right now. That is enough. We regroup in the control room and look at energy. Sun is back. The array will give us a big charge window. I say we use it for a full backwash cycle, a short rest on the returns, and one last run at reinforcing the dock seal. After that, we decide. Do we keep holding for a day and try to bring one more person inside, or do we move out while morale is steady and the corridors are clear? Lena looks at the board and at the camera feeds and squares her shoulders. She says that if we move, this is the day. Chris nods. He says he will miss the otters. That is his whole comment. I look at the manta circling under the work light and at the laminated card on the rack. I do not like this choice. I make it anyway. We will leave at night. We will take the service intake and the storm channel. We will set the valves for a lifeboat state and walk out with the radio on low. We spend the afternoon building the exit. I set the big tank to 1 return, oxygen cone steady, and tunnel lights off except the blue work light. I leave the beluga chiller on the tightest cycle I can, with tarps in place. Reef lights at the minimum, jelly chrysals just above strand, River Scout stable. I write the valve states on the laminated card and tape it down hard. I tape a second copy inside the panel door for the flood corridor and a third at the catwalk entry. I label each with a fat marker word, stay. I pack a small dry bag for me and one for each of them, mask, regulator, short fins, headlamp with fresh batteries, socks, light food, no extra shirts, no heavy shoes. If it does not help us move faster or quieter, it stays. At sunset, the alley changes. The truck finally shifts and falls off the fence. The sound brings a swarm from the next block. The front doors face that direction. I have no love for those doors tonight. We hear a loud crack from that side and the security glass shivers. The shades will hold once, twice at most. That is our clock. We move our start time up. We go as soon as the backwash finishes. I say it out loud so no one thinks about it for too long. We begin the exit with the otters. I hate that sentence. I mean it strictly. We give them a good puzzle block and close the door. It keeps them focused while we leave the wing. I feed the manta one last portion from the catwalk. She turns and takes it. I whisper that the next person will be here soon. I know that might be fiction. I say it because it steadies my hands. I stand at the beluga camera and count at the surface while the chiller cycles. The numbers hold. I walk away. We reach the service intake hatch with the kits on our shoulders. The water here is clean. It leads to a screened outlet that drops into a basin and then into a storm channel. The screen is latched with 2 bolts we greased last week. I loosen them with a wrench and lift the panel. I feel air move across my face from the channel. It smells like wet concrete and algae. That is better than the smell from the alley. I clip the guideline to the hinge and tie off to my harness. I go first, Lena second, Chris last with the extra rope. I tell both to keep a hand on the line and not to kick hard. We are not trying to set a time. We are trying to clear this box. I drop into the water, and the beam shows smooth walls and a straight run. I kick slow. The line stays snug in my left hand. The water gets brighter at the end where the basin opens to the channel. I pop at the grate and hold the top while I test the hinge with my fingers. It moves clean. I push it up and hold it with my shoulder. Lena slides under me and out. Chris slips through and catches the far lip. I close the grate and secure it with the top bolt so it looks shut from inside. It will not stop anyone who is determined, but it will slow a curious stranger long enough to read the card I left. I close it and move into the basin. The basin is a low box under a grating with a view of the alley. The alley is ugly. The truck lies on its side. Bodies move like weeds in a shallow stream. The blue square from the big window pulses through leaves and broken glass. I want to turn it off. I cannot. The timer is inside. The horde at the front doors swells and surges. The glass bows. I see a line on the frame that looks wrong. I do not wait to watch it fail. We drop into the channel and move into shadow. The channel is thigh-deep and lined with slime that sucks at shoes. I keep to the edges where the texture is rougher. The beam stays on the water. The sound from the aquarium goes dull, and then far. I keep one hand on the wall and one on the rope. I remember to count turns when the channel gives curves. We take the second left like the map said and climb a ladder to a smaller grate. I press my ear to the steel. Quiet. I lift slow. It is a parking structure stairwell that smells like dust and old rain. We slide out and lower the grate with a rag between steel and frame so it does not clang. I stand in the stairwell and breathe through my nose with my mouth closed until spots stop dancing in my vision. I say I am fine. That is also partly a lie. I pull it together. We move. We cross the parking level in a crouch. Headlights are dead eyes that see nothing. The hotel is 2 buildings over. We go through a gap and drop into a service court that is full of trash and broken furniture. The court goes quiet as our steps slow. We stop behind a stack of mattresses and listen. The street has a shuffle on it and a scrape that sounds like a lamppost rubbing a sign. No voices. No whistles. I send one quick flash with the mirror toward the roof of the hotel. A small light flashes back twice. That is Lena's code from week 1. She smiles with just the corners of her mouth. We move along the wall and find the service door cracked with a mop head jammed in it. We slip inside and close it. The lobby is raw. The front glass is boarded. Someone drew arrows toward the stairwell in lipstick. We skip the elevator and take the stairs. We move slow and low and stop at each landing to listen with our ears to the rail. No scuffs. No breath sounds. At the 5th floor we turn left and find the room with the towel under the door and the mirror by the peephole. Chris knocks 3 times, then once. The door opens the width of a forearm. A woman in her 50s looks at Lena and nods. She packs a tiny bag and lifts it like it weighs nothing. She wears sneakers and a jacket with the hood tied loose. She does not ask questions. She shuts the door behind her and leaves the key in the lock. I like her already. We leave in the same order we came. We reach the stairwell and hear a new sound. Someone found the court door and wants in. The mop jam popped. Steps slide on tile. We go up instead of down. Rooftop. Chris climbs a half ladder and swings the hatch. The roof takes wind and little else. The skyline is a line of black boxes and a few points of amber from small fires. The aquarium sits behind us. Blue square pulsing like a lighthouse we do not need anymore. I tell myself that is for the animals and the next person. I do not look again. We cross roof to roof using 2 ladders and a short plank we found weeks ago. The plank bends, but it holds. The older woman keeps pace and does not step on the middle. She walks like she has done this before. Maybe she has. We drop into a separate stairwell 3 buildings away and find the channel again under a grate. We do the slow drop with the rag. We walk in water to a new exit that opens near a transit line. It is quieter here, fewer bodies, different smell, less fish, more dirt. I can live with that. We pick a direction that gets us to higher ground and more rooftops. We do not make for the interstate. We go toward the cluster of mid-rise offices with recessed entries and deep shade. We move when wind moves leaves and stop when air stills. The older woman whispers once that she used to take her niece to the aquarium. She says the manta always swam in the same circle under the light. She smiles and puts her mouth back into a flat line that holds. My throat goes tight. I keep walking. At the edge of the district, we look back one last time. The blue square is a dot. The hoard at the front doors looks like a shirt with too many stains. The glass holds, then bows, then bursts in a shower that I cannot hear from here. The crowd pours in like water into an empty bowl. I tense, then let it go. We left the valves in a state that can ride for a while. The back halls are trapped and wedged. The ditch is set. The grills are down. The doors we used are blocked from the inside. The next person can still make it work if he reads the card and looks at the chalk. I cannot do more from out here. I accept that and step off the roof into a stairwell that smells like paint and dust and a little hope. We walk through a city that is quieter than it should be at this hour. We pass a bakery with a broken window and a smell like old sugar. We pass a bike shop with a wall of frames knocked down like dominoes. We pass a school with a sign that says closed for maintenance. I laugh once because that is honest. Everything is closed for maintenance now. The work is larger than one building. The way you start is the same. Keep the loops moving. Make your roots curved. Use water and weight and doors. Teach the next person fast. Leave a map. We bed down in a stairwell with a door we can wedge and a view slit we can watch. We eat dry food that sticks in the throat and chase it with water that tastes like plastic again. The older woman thanks Lena without looking at me or Chris, like this is between 2 people who shared a signal. That is fine. All of us paid into this night. The debt is even. Just before sleep, I pull the radio and speak into it for 2 minutes. I give no names. I give no address. I say, strong building with water and power. Blue light over the big window. Lifeboat state is set. Follow chalk arrows low. Read the card on the rack. Do not touch the oxygen cone valves. Move at night. Keep your head down. If you hear this, you can make it. I click off and set the radio on my chest. I close my eyes and see a manta under a blue light. I open my eyes and look at a blank stairwell. Both are true. One is gone for me now. Someone else will take that chair. Morning comes with a flat white sky and no sirens. We move again and make for a campus where we know there are labs with generators and ghillie tarps in storage. It is not a dream of safety. It is a plan with steps. We have 2 extra sets of hands now, and we know how to set traps and move in curved paths. We can teach that again. I run through the checklist with the pencil on my chest even though it is not the aquarium. It is how I keep my head. I write water, power, roots, doors, tools, food. I underline the word roots because people forget that part and run in straight lines when fear tries to run the show. We reach the edge of the campus before noon. I stop us short and point at the brick wall and the shade underneath. I whisper the next steps and watch both faces to see if the words land. They do. We go in one at a time, low and steady, with hands open and eyes on edges. Not heroes, just caretakers who learned to fight with doors and water and cheap plastic and patience. The work is the same in a new box. Keep the loops moving, keep the noise down, hold as long as it makes sense. Leave a map when you go. That is the job now. That is what is left. That's all for now. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe to keep the stories alive. For now, stay quiet, stay vigilant, and stay alive. Jack's Nightmares, signing off. Until next time, survivor.